Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, this is Gary Wilson, and welcome to this week's version of Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. Welcome aboard, dentist, chiropractor, pilot, teacher, fireman, policeman. Those are mainly the groups, always business owners. Most of you own businesses. And the reason we have this is we don't do all the no money down, owner financing, buying on term stuff. We do that in certain cases. It has its place. It's just not every place. But what we endeavor to do is to help you, fellow business owners, eventually get on a cash basis because you call the shots. You get the good deals. Later on, you can finance after the fact and be creative and constructive and be in control of things. So in any case, that's really what this is about. We do invest honorably and ethically in the areas that we work in. It's win-win for the community, win-win for the tenants, win-win for us. If you would like to be part of the community, by the way, the online community, you can go to myinvestmentservices.com, click on members area right up top, and in the next page you'll see silver level. If you're already a member, you just log in. If you're not, click on the right-hand box to check it out. And join us. We're several thousand strong all across the U.S. and Canada, and 30 to 30 other countries too. We'd love to have you on board. And at a minimum, definitely subscribe to the podcast though. Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, 30 some odd different channels. But in any case, we're glad you're on board. We got a special guest today, Dustin Nulf. And the cool thing about Dustin is we actually know each other personally. So we've known each other for probably a decade now. We were part of the same brokerage company and still are today, and use the same model of investing, building brokerage out of that, serving other investors, offering property management. And it's a great service to you, the investor, when you can have all that in-house and basically one-stop shopping, and you know who you're dealing with. They're certified investor agents, and they know what you need, they know what you want because they do it themselves. And Dustin is one of those guys. So Dustin, welcome aboard, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate you taking your precious time to do this. And if you wouldn't mind, I, of course, was in Pittsburgh for a quarter century, and you're there also. So I know a little bit more about you than most folks. But for those who don't, would you mind painting a picture? Just tell us, and take your time, what industry you came out of. Maybe if you went to college, what did you study? And some of those things that probably led you to where you are now, and that'll help provide some context. Then we'll get into some case studies and some of what you're doing. Does that sound okay?
Sure, sounds good. So I moved to Pittsburgh. I think it was 1997. I'm originally from Du Bois, Pennsylvania, which is a small town up kind of halfway between Pittsburgh and State College. Pittsburgh, was the big city to me, and it by default, I had applied at Penn State and didn't get accepted, so I went to Pitt, which, the Penn State-Pitt rivalry, it was kind of like in your face, Penn State, I'm going here then. So I ended up getting accepted at Pitt for pre-law, believe it or not, and after taking my first semester and having one law class, I realized that was definitely not what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty much just lost. I was one of the first in my family to go to college. My parents didn't know anything about what I should be doing or how college worked, and neither did I. So I ended up switching my major over to psychology because it was something of interest to me. I didn't really know if I actually wanted to get a job or have a career in psychology after that. I just knew that I liked the idea of learning about how people work. So I stuck with that, and 4 years I graduated barely. I was about ready to quit my last year because I was just getting tired of school and classes, and followed my dream of being a musician. I played in several bands off and on between then and my real estate career, and I finally just kind of I've always been money motivated, although I didn't have money at the time. And what I found with being a musician was that in order for you to make money, if you're working in a small team like a band is, you need to have people on your team that are also motivated to reach the same goals. And in music, that is usually not money, right? So my bandmates wanted to hang out and get free beer. and meet women. And I wanted to make money and live off of music, and that didn't work out. So I ended up, my default career was the restaurant industry. That's what I had been in for years, all through college and whatnot. I ended up taking a job at Taco Bell because I got laid off from one restaurant and was broke, and I needed the money, and I knew they would hire me right away. Mm-hmm. And just kind of luck of life, my GM got fired, got replaced by this guy that was highly talented and highly motivated. And he really just kind of changed my life. He taught me how to be a businessman. He had multiple businesses on the side. Mm-hmm. He ran that restaurant. We ended up being like one of the top in the nation a couple of years after I started working there. And he took me from the bottom and turned me into, a manager essentially. So I knew how to run the business, read profit and loss statements and that sort of stuff. But over time, I ended up realizing I'm getting paid, 40, 50 grand a year to run these restaurants. I was looking at the profit and loss statement for the owner who owned 54 restaurants, and he was netting about $2.5 million a year. And I thought, holy hell, I'm working 80 hours a week so he can make $2.5 million a year. Mm-hmm. If I owned my own business and worked 80 hours a week, I could be making $2.5 million a year. Mm-hmm. So that's what got the gears turning, where I started looking for business opportunities and things that I could get in with a relatively low overhead because I was broke and making, I'm making 40, 50 grand a year. That's pretty decent as a single guy, but it's not enough to, invest 300 grand into a business.
Right.
So, real estate, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that was pretty much it. I read the story about Robert Kiyosaki buying a foreclosure or something for $2,000 down. He used his friend's money to buy it and then sold it and made 40 grand or something like that. Mm-hmm. That was like just the light bulb went off, and I thought, man, this is it. I got to do this. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of long story short. I got my real estate license. I wanted to be an investor, and I figured if I got my license, I would get to learn about the business by working in the business, and then I would get access to deals on the MLS that I otherwise wouldn't be able to get unless I was working with an agent. So got licensed, started figuring out that I could make a lot of money as an agent selling real estate, and naturally I was more in tune with the investor side because it's more run like a business. And, ran into Gary's listings when he was running his brokerage and started mimicking what he was doing because I didn't know what I was doing and he did. So I started copying your listings and the way they were listed and started focusing a lot on the investor side, and went from making no money in real estate to, quitting my job. And around, I think it was the 2-year mark, I had quit my job and closed 38 deals that year, 38 deals the following year, and then 70 deals the year after that. So that's kind of it. I've then focused on building my investment portfolio. The natural progression to that was now I had 14 units, and I couldn't deal with them on my own anymore because I was also running my sales business. So instead of hiring a property management company, I started a property management company and ended up merging with my business partner, David Henninger, a couple years after that. And we went from 27 units to 224 units under management at the moment. And our goal is to add another 150 units this year.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, that's what's amazing is how similar our stories are. I mean, I got my license too, almost really out of frustration because most agents, even my own neighbor was my agent. She wasn't able to really service me. She would, using the traditional owner-occupant methodology, and she would show me properties. Like, for example, one day she called, she said, "Hey, Garrett, well, you got to see this place. It's got to be at least worth $125,000, and they only won 120. That doesn't help. I need the numbers don't work,
Right.
But I appreciate you mentioning me and the listings, all that kind of stuff. And I'm, glad to share this humblingness. And now, of course, now I teach all this stuff. So I'm glad to see where you are now. And it's a similar path. I mean, I started property management for myself. I built my own team, and I had enough clients asking me, "Hey, Eric, can you manage mine too?" And at first I used to say, "No, I don't want to do that." And I realized, okay, what I could basically incorporate what I've got. I've already got the team, and then offer that as a service. And I did started off with launched it with 40 units. I had 5 clients. I handpicked them, and within 3 years, it grew to like 700 units. And we actually had growing pains. We grew so fast, and we weren't ready for it. We didn't have the infrastructure. And long story short, it's an invaluable service to investors, and the fact that you do it yourself, you understand the sales side, you understand the management side, and you yourself are an investor. To me, that's like anybody who's an investor. You look for guys like Dustin. I mean, we certify our agents that we train, by the way. They're called certified investor agents. Always look for that designation. Look for guys like Dustin, because you got somebody who's walking the talk. They're actually doing it themselves, and they know what you need and know what you want. But also find what's interesting about your background, Dustin, is you have an entrepreneurial gene, and I've seen this a lot with musicians. Not all of them, but a lot of good entrepreneurs have some type of history in music, background in music. I don't know what it is. It's something about the creative process, the desire to want more, the ambition to want to be the best, and like you said, make money from it. And then when you got into business, managing franchises for another person, you learn how to read financial statements, and I'll be the first to tell you guys, anybody listening to this, you've got to look at investing like a business, because it is a business. Every property has a financial statement. They got rent rolls, profit and loss, income, expense. You've got to be able to read the financial statement and see the story, and the numbers tell the story. Okay. By the way, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Dustin. I actually got to meet Robert Kiyosaki. He came to our mastermind group about 5 years ago, and we swapped stories. And I said, look, I built this portfolio of properties, and then I leveraged that to launch businesses like brokerage, property management. I had a title business. I don't know if you remember that. I had a title business at one time, an appraisal business. And again, I was just hungry. I just had the ambition. I just wanted more and more and more. And Robert Kiyosaki looked at me and he said, no, you're absolutely right. He said, real estate investing isn't the end game. It's the foundation upon which you launch other businesses. And he said, the real big money is in building businesses and either merging or selling them. The real estate allows you to do that. And whatever excess capital you get, you'll back into bigger properties. And I'm like, and I didn't know that. I mean, I just did it sort of instinctually. And it turns out Grant Cardone, turns out one of my coaches was one of his former coaches. Same methodology. It's not just, you don't want to just have one way of making money. You want to have at least 3. Okay.
Right.
And so you're an awesome example of doing that. And I'm just amazed by it. So, in any case, hey, if you wouldn't mind, can you give us maybe some of the what? Like, what are you doing? I know you're kind of pulled back a little bit on the brokerage side and focus more on management and acquiring more inventory. But if you wouldn't mind, kind of give us an idea for people listening who have rentals and are like, maybe they're a dentist or like, man, I'm killing myself. I need somebody to manage these. What can they expect, or what is it you do that would help them see why they should use management and not do it themselves,
Right. Well, yeah, like you said, I've been there. So, I've seen both sides of it. I've seen the side as the sales agent or the property manager. I've also seen the side as the investor. And unfortunately, the thing about the entrepreneurial gene is it's also the rebel gene, right? Like, we don't want to work for anybody else, and we don't want anybody to tell us what to do. We're going to do it ourselves. And that mindset not only can make us successful, but it can hold us back. And what I learned when I hit that 14 unit level, what I learned was I was spending all my time working on sales, and I was trying to self-manage these properties, and I was still the guy where, tenant leaves, they left unexpectedly. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to paint it. I'll paint it. I'll be able to paint it. It'll save me money because I'm going to paint it. And I'm going to do the plumbing repairs on it too. And by the way, I'll replace that carpet. Well, when the weekend rolled around and I'm still in sales mode and I'm showing properties and I'm going to listing appointments and that sort of stuff, well, I'll push it to the side because I'm going to make more money on these listings than I am from renting this place. So my units just sat vacant while I would get, I'll just get to it later. And what I ended up finally, I thought about, man, I've been trying to do $30 an hour work, and I'm worth $100, $150 an hour at that point. Why am I waiting to do this? Why am I not just paying somebody and getting a new tenant in there? And then I thought, well, I can't pay somebody to do that right now without hiring somebody or hiring a property management company. So then it was choice A or choice B. And I figured, well, if I got to hire somebody, if I got to hire a property management company, I'm going to have to interview them. So I may as well just interview somebody to work for me. And I moved on to that step. When I hired my property manager and put my properties under our management company, I paid the same rates that any of our landlords would pay. And I netted more money. If you individually looked at my holdings, I netted more money when I handed it over and started paying for somebody.
Yep.
Netted more money because you do not see that money that you're losing through vacancy, through shoddy turnovers, through the inability to stay up on things. That's where the biggest loss occurs for landlords, is that they don't realize the money that they're not getting because they're mismanaging properties.
Correct. Yeah,
so that's the big pitch there. Like, we run a 2.3% vacancy rate in Pittsburgh. The average is 7%.
Mm-hmm.
If you hire us, you make 4 point whatever percent more than you would if you hired an average property management company. And that's
right.
And if you're trying to self-manage, you might be running a 10% vacancy rate.
Yep. You're absolutely right. It's you hit a couple of key points there, and I would tell you, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So our minds are, there's part of our brain called amygdala, way back in the back here, core part of our brain, the oldest part of the brain. It keeps us from stepping outside the cave, so to speak. So what happens is something can make perfect sense. We can look at something mathematically or look, kind of plot it out visually, and it makes sense. But that part of our brain is always holding us back because we're thinking of the now, the here and now. I need to save that $1,500 to repaint, recarpet, and replumb, whatever. But the reality is, if you'd have paid somebody to do that, it would have saved you probably 40, 50 hours of work that easily you could go out there and land 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more deals that make you maybe 10 or 20,000 each one. So it does take faith. You gotta discipline yourself you have to think where you want to be. You can't use the thinking. Our best thinking got us where we are today. If you want to operate on a different level, you got to think at that level, right? And everything materially catches up. Right. So everybody listening, I hope that just made a lot of sense to you, because for me, that was a critical path too. I was doing everything myself also, Dustin. And my mentor kept telling me, he said, you're either not getting it or you don't care what I'm telling you, but you're missing it, Gary. You're missing the point. And I finally started turning things over, and it ended up being my property management business. And what I did, Dustin, is this. I actually ran my own properties through my own company and paid like my clients did. Mm-hmm. Well, they caught wind of that. They just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And it ended up getting a lot of referral business. I did it because I wanted to take advantage of the management so I could see the reports, everything my clients were getting. I wanted to see what they were getting so I could see misses and errors and mistakes and stuff. Turns out, from a marketing perspective, it was genius. So if you're doing that, make sure you're promoted, because people, it's like you're putting yourself in the same boat your clients are as far as service goes. And I guess in their mind they're thinking, well, gee, you wouldn't do that in your own properties if you didn't believe in it. Something like that's happening in their minds, but man, it really works,
Yep.
So, okay, well, that sounds pretty cool. If you wouldn't mind, can you go back a little bit in time? We've been through in the last 10 years, look at where we've come economically. We were 10 years ago, we're at the bottom of one of the worst recessions in the history of the United States since the last Depression. And here we are now at the top of the economy. So you've seen, like I have, the wide range of economic factors. But going back to those years, can you think of an example? We call it a case study. Maybe you can laugh about it today. Maybe it was one of those things that was a hard luck story, but you ended up making it shine like a star. Or maybe something was a home run, something that really resonated with people. Because I want them to see that, you and I we're not perfect. It's not like we don't make mistakes, but because of that entrepreneurial gene and the ambition to want more, we constantly get back in the game and get back on the horse. I want people to see that in you. If you wouldn't mind just sharing something from maybe a property you bought, for example,
Yeah, I mean, I still say the first property I bought is the worst property I bought, and I still hold it today because I can't sell the damn thing. So that one, I got into the business. It was 2008. The market was plummeting, and I ran into, it was an old bar and grill in the area that I lived. And this guy had, he was up to nefarious things and ended up getting foreclosed on. This building just sat there. It was priced at like 40 or 50 grand or something like that. And I thought, well, this is right down the street. It's a nice little building. It needs a lot of work, but I'm going to come in. And I came in, I got a home equity line of credit. That was back when you go to the bank and say, I want a home equity line of credit. And they'd say, how much money do you want? And you just give them a number and they give it to you.
Yeah.
And, fortunate for me, I was more risk averse back then. So they asked me how much money I wanted. And I said, I don't know. I think my house is worth this. So I'll ask for 30 grand. And they said, are you sure you don't want more? And I was like, yeah, I don't want any more than that because that's what my house is worth. So I was, smart enough back then not to take more than I needed. So I got a line of credit for 30 grand. I bought this place for 15. It was listed 40, 50, something like that. And back then, if you remember in Pittsburgh, you could come in with 10, 15 grand and buy a place like that and negotiate with the bank and you were getting it. And I thought I got this great deal, go in, put all the sweat equity into the property. It starts cash flowing. Immediately after I buy it, the county reassesses the property. Taxes like quadruple. So all of my profit pretty much gets swallowed up by the reassessment. I didn't know any better back then. I never fought the assessment. And, it's basically been a break even or a loss for many years. Finally, I've held the property for 12 years now, almost. And finally that property, we're actually, it's profitable because my property management company needed warehouse space, and I had 3,000 square feet of empty space that we could store stuff. So I'm making maybe, $4,000 a year off of it. And it's because we're paying $300 and some a month for storage space. Yeah. Which, I could rent out to somebody else at this point and actually profit off of it. So that's the cool thing. Gary Keller in the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, he says that real estate, the good thing about real estate is very forgiving.
Yep.
So the longer you hold it, the more likely you are to start making money off of it, so long as you can survive the stupidity of the first act, right?
Yeah, I love it. I used to use that phrase too, even before I ever met Gary Keller or read his book or merged my brokers. Is I learned early on, thank goodness, unlike the stock market, real estate is very forgiving, and you have more control. So if you do make a mistake, you can usually overcome it by doing something, change out the tenants, remodel something. There's lots of options there, maybe restructure, refinance. And so I always realized, okay, I'm going to get as much information as I can, get as much education as I can, so I can make the best decisions, knowing that in spite of our best efforts, just like dating, sometimes you just don't know till 3 or 6 months later, something pops out you didn't see or didn't anticipate. It was a hidden defect, But I in the early years, I would get stressed out. I'd just beat myself up, and I finally realized, what am I doing? I'm still okay. My gosh, and the more properties you have, the more it kind of teaches you to calm down, stabilize, and don't get excited about something. Step back,
right?
Look at it from an analytical perspective, and there's always an option. So maybe with that building you got there, you could try something creative. Maybe it might take another year or two till the economy starts to shift again, but look for like a lease option where you're optioning it out, or there's probably you could do. Maybe you could be the lender. Maybe you could do owner financing. I've got a lot of students that do that, mostly in Texas and some of those southern states. But great way to generate revenue and get rid of the headaches, at least for the most part.
Right.
But in any case, so let's talk about. So we know where you are in Pittsburgh. Have you invested? Have you started to invest outside of the city? Have you gone out into Westmoreland County, some of the surrounding counties, or are you still pretty much in the Pittsburgh vicinity? What's your mindset on that? Because I know when I did that, it took me years, Dustin, to grapple with the fact that my mentor kept saying, Gary, you're missing 99.9% of the opportunities. But I felt like I wanted to be able to see the properties. I wanted to be able to drive there. And he said, that's your limiting belief. He said, people own properties all over the world and never see them. And so what's your mindset there? Where you are in that? And because maybe you're ready for the next step. But of course, Pittsburgh's always been awesome, man. You can't knock it,
Yeah. I am a control freak, so I still like to have, there's some of my properties I haven't seen in over 2 years now. So I am getting to the point where I don't necessarily feel like I need to be at them. My partner and I, we purchased something like 11 or 12 buildings last year, single family, small multifamily. And I think maybe we've been in, I mean, there's some of them we bought where we didn't even look at them. So we are getting to that point. They are all in Allegheny County, so they're within the area that we manage. That's the one thing that I think I would be afraid to hand off is the property management, because my partner and I are both like perfectionists as far as how we deal with the properties and how they're maintained, how they are processed. So the idea is that I keep growing in the Allegheny County area or the Pittsburgh metro area. It's still a super hot market. This is the first year since like 1980 something that Pittsburgh has seen a population increase, that's like a huge hurdle that we've crossed right now. So I still feel like Pittsburgh is on the upswing. So hopefully, knock on wood, we're still recession proof and it's a great place for growth. I'm looking at property right now in Beaver County. So I would not be opposed to those outlying border areas that are still within our reach. And then my mindset is I like the idea of Cleveland at some point. And if I start buying in Cleveland, I'm going to have a management company in Cleveland too. So I'm still going to be a control freak.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, you touched on something really important for all the listeners here. I do a lot of studying. I constantly read and study like every single day. And still today, Pittsburgh is one of the best areas to invest in because of its stability. Back in the 70s, went through some major challenges, the steel industry, right? And then again later on, it actually transformed and morphed and evolved into more of a financial center, so to speak. So now in Pittsburgh, you've got high tech, you got higher education, and you got strong medical.
Yeah, best healthcare in the nation.
That's it, man. You're as stable as you can possibly get. I mean, think about it. Several colleges, universities, world class, and in a recession, college enrollment actually increases, Hospitals never ran a business. So, I mean, so there's two right there that Pittsburgh shines in a big, big way. And again, you got high tech and major finance going on. The pricing is still relatively low compared to many parts of the rest of the nation. And so people see that. They're coming in. You got great sports. I mean, this year is not as good as others, but, great sports, great culture. It's very ethnically rich. I mean, you can fly to almost anywhere from Pittsburgh. It's got a world-class airport. Just an amazing place. The only reason I'm not there is I'm not originally from there. I'm originally from Virginia, so I now live part-time in Florida and part-time up in Ontario, Canada. But that's only because I'm able to. My children are grown and things like that. But, I still go back there on a regular basis. I was just there a couple of weeks ago, and I'm amazed at the growth I'm seeing. And I'm thinking now, honestly, gee, I wish I'd have hung on to some of those properties. Yeah. Unbelievable. I mean, it's just crazy how life progresses. But let's talk about this. Let's talk a little bit about timing. So we know the area. We're in Western Pennsylvania, and we mentioned, we're here at the peak of an economy. 10 years ago, it was the bottom of the economy. But what have you noticed as far as timing goes? Like, are you using strategies today that are different than the strategies you used 10 years ago? And you're using some of the same ones. So if you don't mind, touch on that a little bit. Like what techniques are you using to identify and structure the deal that may be the same or different than it was back at the bottom of the recession,
So, I mean, as far as purchasing deals, when I started, I was more creative, I guess, or well, maybe not more creative, but I was heavily looking for owner finance stuff because I could come in. 3 of my first purchases were owner finance, where I paid $4,000 out of pocket, and then I was paying the owner principal plus interest. 2 of those were land contracts where the deed was not recorded in my name yet. The other one was a full owner finance where the owner held the note. The first one I bought was with a home equity line of credit, so I'm all about not using my own money. If at all possible. And if I am going to use my own money, I try to limit the amount that I'm going to have invested in it. And that's, especially when I started, I was able to turn a very little bit into a lot. So one of my best deals, I'm probably getting over 150% ROI annually on it right now, if you look at the internal rate of return on it. So that's what I was looking for, is like those ones that were really going to boost my income and my net worth sheet substantially. Now I guess I take things, I'm way more conservative now because I totally miscalculated back then. People talk about cap rate and they say, well, what's the cap rate on that? Like, that's a good analysis. Like, that's a horrible way of looking at an analysis because everybody calculates the cap rate differently.
Right.
So when I'm calculating properties now, we're doing, I estimate that 10% of the gross rents will be spent on maintenance or maintenance escrow. We look at, I estimate up to 10% for a property management fee. And that's even like we're paying ourselves to manage the properties. And I estimate that high just to be safe. I estimate 7% for the vacancy, even though we run better than that, just because that's what the average is in the area.
Right.
And then using those numbers, then I'll look at, my cap rate. Somebody might say it's an 8 cap and I'm calculating it's a 5 cap. Based on my conservative estimates. So I will buy an 8 cap, but I'll buy an 8 cap under my calculations.
Right.
So that's the big thing that's changed. And then I do the BRRRR method. So we come in with, if we're using commercial lending, we come in with 20% down. We're looking at about 5 to 6% in closing costs. And then we do a little bit of work on the property, get it re-tenanted, get more income coming in, and then refinance it later, and hopefully pull out all of our initial investment plus some. We've had some winners where we walked away with a couple grand at the closing table. We've had some where we still have a couple grand tied up in it. But the way I figure it right now in this market is if I can break even on my investment, where I'm getting all of my money back for the most part, and then I get a property that's like, to me, it's like I got a property for free. Actually, I got paid to get the property because I got paid my commission. I got paid my management fees. I paid my maintenance guys through my company. Like, I get paid the whole way along the process, which is nice being that owner of everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing, because that's probably one of the most important things people could hear is what you just described there. And so it's really important that you practice due diligence and be patient and be disciplined about it too, because we all want to make the big bucks and we want to make a property shine, but you have to be practical and realistic. It is what it is, and you may have to use the BRRRR method, buy, remodel, rent, refinance to get it to where it will shine. So it's not like you flip a switch and the money comes out. It does take an effort. It's like each little property is its own little business.
Yeah, and that model's not good for everybody, though. That's the thing too. Like, if you are a working professional and you're a doctor or a lawyer or something, I have the time. I go look at these properties and assess them, and then I'm overseeing the management and the rehab of them. If you don't have the time to do that, you might be better off just buying with your conventional 20, 30% down and holding on to it, because you can still, if you were to buy an 8 cap with 20% down and hold on to it for 20 years, you're going to see a 30 to 40% internal rate of return based on appreciation, tenant pay down, and cash flow. Yeah. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. You're not getting that from the stock market.
That's right. You're exactly right. A lot of people are definitely, they want to buy, it's better for them to buy properties that are already in service, operating, and you're basically buying, it's like you're buying an annuity, you're buying a cash flow stream. That's what I started doing over time, Dustin, is I started shifting. I would use the BRRRR method, but more looking for management issues and not deferred maintenance, because now I can read financial statements. I can see where a landlord's evicting too many people and the rents are low. And I'm like, okay, I can come in there in a 100-unit building in a year, get that thing turned around. And I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm getting. With deferred maintenance, sometimes you open up a wall to change a pipe and you got to change all the wiring. It's just a lot of hidden defects. But with management issues, it usually shows up loud and clear in the financial statements. So I appreciate you sharing that. Hey, we're getting closer, but if you wouldn't mind, 2 things. I'll let you wrap this up. Give us a little bit about the why. I mean, what drives you? Maybe it could be your spouse, your dad, children, things like that. But also, people are probably going to want to get a hold of you, man, just quite frankly, because you're actually doing it. So how can the listeners and followers find you on website, phone number, email, anything you can share? And again, maybe a piece of Dustin Nulf wisdom,
Yeah, well, so they can find me. I mean, I'm fortunate that I don't have a name that everybody else has. So Dustin Nulf, if you Google Dustin Nulf Pittsburgh, you will find me. Property management company is called the Full House LLC. So the fullhousepittsburgh.com is our website. And then otherwise, just Google the Dustin Nulf Pittsburgh and you'll find me. I do have a YouTube channel. If again, Dustin Nulf, if you search me on YouTube, you're going to find that channel. We discuss investing, property management, sales, and entrepreneurship. So there's a nice variety of content there. But yeah, I mean, my big why, I guess, you know, my why is more about my drive to succeed. Like, I just want to be the best. That's what it's come down to. And I've kind of struggled with that over the years. Like, you know, my why is my family. My why is that I can reach financial freedom. Well, I've reached financial freedom. I can provide for my family. I know that even if something happens to me, that they have a nice, solid foundation to survive on. So I've kind of already reached all those pinnacles. And now it's just like, I want to get to as much passive income as possible. And now it's just a matter of like, I want to be the top 1% or the top 1% of the top 1% because why not? This is America. Why not?
Right. Yeah, I agree. When people ask me, well, how much do you want? I used to just out of habit blurt off. At first, I want to be $1 million. I want to be a millionaire. And then it was like, I want to have $1,000 a day net cash flow. Well, I quickly blew past that. And they were like, okay, 10 million. I just throw numbers out there. Now I tell people, you know what? I really don't even know what to tell you because the answer is more. I want the next thing. I just, if I reach, you know, I have to do this every year as part of my group, but I wrote down, $100 million, go 10x, right? Go from 10 to 100. And Lord willing, I'll get there. I might not get there, but it doesn't really matter to me because I'm constantly in growth mode and I'm looking for more. And I don't feel bad about it. We don't make excuses for being awesome. That's one of our taglines in our mastermind group is it's okay to be successful. It's okay to want more. What matters is who you are as a person, because see, money's not going to make you happier or a better person. It's just going to make you more of who you are, you know?
Right.
It's like anything in life. So, hey, Justin, I got to tell you, man, I appreciate you sharing your valuable time. I know you're busy because I know what you're doing, and it's a pleasure personally to be able to catch up with you. And I'm going to look you up next time I'm in Pittsburgh because I'm thinking of plunking some money down there again, partly because my kids are there and they're going to start having kids, and so I've got an interest in personally in being there. So in any case, let me wrap this up and hang on just a second. So everybody listening, I hope you got a big kick out of this because I did, and replay it because there's some golden nuggets in here. And I think I speak for everybody, Dustin, when I say thank you for sharing your precious time and your knowledge with all the listeners. For all the listeners, we'll see you on the next podcast. Again, go ahead and subscribe if you'd like to. It's Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women, kind of a long title, but we wanted to be very specific. And also go to mybusinessservices.com and check it out, man. Get all kinds of free books, reports, get a month free on the membership site. You can check out everybody and nobody gets where they are by themselves. So come on and join the community. All right. We will see you next week. Take care and God bless.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.